Transparency, accountability, honesty, and fairness are integral words when dealing with public procurement. And to ensure that this is achieved is the mandate of the Procurement Regulatory Authority of Zimbabwe, which exists within Zimbabwe's integrated economic landscape. But how is this done? To answer these questions, I'm joined by Mr. Friedin Dlovu, who is the Director for ICT at PRAZ. Director, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you, Peter.
You are in charge of the technological innovations at PRAZ. Let's start there. What are some of the technological innovations that you've managed to oversee to ensure that PRAZ leverages on Zimbabwe's integrated economic landscape and ensures fairness, accountability, transparency, and honesty?
Thank you, PJ. You'd find that as PRAZ, I think like previous speakers, they've spoken about EGP system, which we implemented last year. We went live on the 1st of January 2024. And the system is such that it takes care of registrations, where you actually get suppliers to register, because that forms the foundation of the EGP system. And what we then had to do is actually also then implement other modules that go with it, in terms of e-tendering, e-awarding, e-evaluation, e-contract management, and now we're building on data analytics. As you know, data is new oil. So data, our system is actually data driven, and therefore we're actually gathering the data, and we'll be able actually to generate insights that decision makers can make use of. You'll find that even as we implemented our EGP, we had to make sure to make use of 4IR technologies. Like, for example, our EGP system right now is sitting in the cloud. So we are making use of cloud technology. And we also then now have got the connectivity that's necessary. We had to make sure that we invest in cybersecurity, which is another 4IR technology. We also had to make sure that we then can actually also grow the system to utilize artificial intelligence. So that's actually something that's coming. We're going to add artificial intelligence capabilities in our system. We are also going to look at use of blockchain technology as well for our contract management, because we look to actually have smart contracts. And all that is aiding or helping procuring entities and suppliers to actually do public procurement business in Zimbabwe.
You bring up one of your flagship projects, which is the EGP. You must be very proud of that particular project. I want us to talk about that. There are issues to do with accessibility when we introduce anything that has to do with the internet. There are issues to do with equity and equality when we introduce some of these issues. We've managed also to speak to one of your fellow directors, who speaks about your monitoring and evaluation division. What has been the response from that particular division in terms of the performance of the EGP system? Has it been working? What are some of the challenges and the success stories that are coming from its implementation?
Right, thank you. And PJ, you mentioned it so well that there can be accessibility issues. And you know, as a country, we have got infrastructure challenges. In the country, there are still some areas or some pockets where you don't have internet connectivity. And as you mentioned, EGP is internet-based and it requires connectivity. But what we had to do was to make sure that we partner with Zimpost, who have got some community information centers scattered throughout the country. That's just to cater for that user who may not have an internet-enabled device or may not necessarily have the internet itself. And they can go to those community information centers to make use of their internet. What we have also done is that we have been talking to the MDAs in terms of them investing in internet for their users, their PMU users, so that they can actually get to have good internet that will allow them to be able to put up their tenders. But PJ, you would actually be interested to know that there are some remote areas, like rural authorities, that are in the remotest of places, that have been able to utilize this system. Because the EGP system itself is very light, it's not heavy on data, so you can actually pretty much run it from any mobile device. If you have got WhatsApp, you then actually should be able to use it. And what we have also been doing in terms of encouraging utilization is in terms of actually having capacity building exercises where we were training, because part of the challenge we were facing was some PEs making mistakes when they're actually putting up their tenders. Because the way they have to do it is that they create templates on the system and on the platform, which templates are then to be filled by the suppliers when they are responding to a tender. And when we started, there was that challenge where they were making those mistakes, and the issues we're getting when we started have now changed, and there's improvement in terms of utilization from the PEs. The same goes with the suppliers themselves. When we started, there are some suppliers who were making some funny mistakes. Like some would actually put an address where they're supposed to put their names. And when we generate a certificate, the certificate has got
an address
61 Simon Mazoro or something. And yet, and when we generate that certificate, because the name is then key in the system.
Okay.
And when a certificate is generated with that name, it was a mission to then change it using the same funds. Because you actually pay to actually register as a supplier. So those are some of the challenges we're facing. But I want to say that it actually has been improving. And I know our M&E division, like you mentioned, has actually going around actually checking on these PEs. There are some procuring entities that are still not 100% compliant. There are some who would still procure outside the system. But the end game and where we want everyone to get to is actually everyone to use the system. Because when you use the system, you then can get some insights or information that will be useful for the PE and the whole of government. Because right now from the system, like the data analytics that I spoke about, from a click of a button, one can actually tell that the government of Zimbabwe is spending so much on such products. And then you can actually be able to plan ahead. Imagine as an entity, if it's PRAZ and they are aware that in 2025, 60% of the procurements went into, say, motor vehicles. Then you would know what needs to happen. And as a country, if we know where the money is going to, we then actually can also be able to negotiate for discounts. If we go for volume procurements and we negotiate volume discounts, we then actually can get discounts as a country. And that will actually be beneficial to the economy.
Director, let me close with you on this issue and allow me to put you on the spot there. What has been the response, in a sentence or better yet in a word, from market players who have been able to utilize the EGP?
Convenient.
Thank you so much, Director. To close off on the issue to do with transparency, fairness, honesty, and equity within the public procurement sector, as Director for Monitoring and Evaluation at the Procurement Regulatory Authority of Zimbabwe, Mr. Charles Kombiro. Director, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, PJ.
We've managed to interview a number of directors at PRAZ, and in almost all of the interviews, you hear the Monitoring and Evaluation Division will do A, B, C, D. Let's start with that portfolio that you carry. An important portfolio, by the way, as PRAZ comes with the connotation of corruption and things to do with running away from transparency. From a monitoring and evaluation point of view, how do you focus on ensuring that there is transparency and anti-corruption within the public procurement sector?
Thank you very much, PJ. I guess it's quite a broad portfolio, but essentially you would understand that the reason why a lot of colleagues would refer to monitoring and evaluation is we are the eye for the regulator, and we go on the ground and assess the situation. So we take various approaches to ensuring this process, but particularly we require all procuring entities to provide updates in terms of reports on a regular basis. In fact, every month we have to know what they are buying, where they're buying, who they're buying from, and for how much they're buying. So what essentially that does, it gives the regulator adequate information in terms of the procurement activity in the system. But not only do we end there, basing on that, and essentially that particular work stream gives us a 360-degree view of everything that is taking place in every procuring entity in the country.
Yes.
But we do not end there. We then go further to visit procuring entities with various criteria that we apply to ensure that we select and prioritize our visits. But at the end of the day, our intention is to ensure that at least every procuring entity or public entity in the country is visited. And at that point, we then assess the extent to which they are meeting the provisions of the Act. But also we do not end there. We also respond and attend to issues that are raised, either directly by individuals who are affected or any issues that we see in the media. We visit those entities to ensure that we keep up with the expectations of the public. Ideally, we try as much as possible that all issues are attended to and we address any challenges that could be there so that we fulfill the requirement to ensure that there's compliance with the Act. And what the Act requires is it requires procurement to be done in a manner which is transparent, which is efficient, which is effective, honesty, and ethical, and a number of things. So we will always be chasing these objectives.
Now, Director, given your portfolio, one might say that you are the watchdog of the watchdog, because PRAZ as an institution is the watchdog of the procurement sector.
In a way,
How
yes.
then does your division ensure that there's interconnectedness between PRAZ as an institution with a mandate to regulate with the broader economic system of Zimbabwe?
Okay, we obviously critical upon all the work that we do is information. And as we strategize in PRAZ, we depend significantly on the available information that we have. And as monitoring and evaluation, one of our key roles is to ensure that we develop and generate a database that supports PRAZ strategy and ensures that we proactively attend to the national issues relating to public procurement, and also to ensure that we enable the country as a whole to achieve its objectives. So by ensuring that we tap and capture the right information, develop it, and ensure that it's available for PRAZ, then the strategies that PRAZ use to support the whole country will then essentially be dependent on that aspect. So information systems is very critical. The analysis that we do and the sharing of information with colleagues.
Finally, Director, as you monitor and evaluate what PRAZ does and the broader economic system within the country, what are some of the key opportunities, economic opportunities, you think that public procurement can influence as we close?
You realize that procurement has got primary and secondary objectives. And after ensuring that procurement is being done in a manner that is transparent, that is ethical, that is honest, that is fair, and cost effectively, PRAZ extends itself into the secondary objectives where it also enables economic growth. And in that, PRAZ obviously understands and recognizes through information that is available specific consumption areas where, as an economy, we can actually stimulate growth, particularly of local industry. So PRAZ is able to actually stimulate growth in those areas by ensuring that such information is available. Now, essentially what we're looking at here is, because public entities in most cases are consumers, and the next tier, which is manufacturing, is the one that actually offers the greatest opportunities for all goods that are demanded and used by public sector, but are supported through imports, for instance. And those particularly come as number one in that area. And PRAZ is able to highlight or put a spotlight on those ones to ensure that those who have the right capacity can invest in those areas, and then continuously we build local capacity. And even in terms of works and construction, those are areas that we've been extending to promote local capability to develop infrastructure. And this is exactly what we've seen even in terms of roads development.
Director, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
Charles Gombiro, the Director of Monitoring and Evaluation at the Procurement Regulatory Authority of Zimbabwe, just taking us through the range of processes that are included in making sure that public procurement is transparent, it's honest, it's ethical, as he says, and is cost effective. I'm PJ Nagoli. Goodbye.